Alrighty, so we are being joined by Marie Mott. And Marie, thank you so much for joining us today and letting folks meet you and learn more about your platform and more about what you support if you were elected. So, first of all, my first question is kind of an introduction question. What qualified you to take on this role, and what would your highest priority be?
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the warm invitation. I am so excited for this opportunity. I would say the thing that qualifies me to be a candidate would be being a public servant, serving the people, whether that is having served people as a protest organizer and leader, whether that is working with so many different organizations from labor unions in the community to the Unity Group, CCJ, Community Control Now. I'm just looking to serve the people at another level and be an agent of change beyond just a particular community, but to my city at large. The greatest priority that I think that we have is really in Chattanooga to focus on how are we going to expand services to the people in the city of Chattanooga. One of the things that has come out of the budgeting for outcomes process was increased services, whether we're talking about behavioral mental health, um, increasing services to the people as far as in this COVID-19 pandemic, whether we're talking about vaccination, continued testing, when we are talking about services like making sure people stay in their homes and don't lose roofs over their heads, and small businesses can remain open so they can employ our people, just expanding services and not for handouts, but just hands up for the people who are just struggling in this current day and age.
Thank you, Marie. So, we're going to move into some budget related questions.
Mhm.
As we near a year since the virus hit Chattanooga, businesses and individuals within the city are struggling due to COVID-19 as well. How would you provide aid to those businesses and families hit hardest by the pandemic's economic impact? And are there programs in place that you would want to keep, and other programs would you like to add?
Excellent question. So, of course, the city has received millions of dollars from the CARES Act, and so I'm super excited that President Joe Biden has looked to continue to extend resources to municipal governments, and even by extending the moratorium of making sure people are not evicted out of their homes. One of the things that I would like to see continued is support of making sure those funds go to people, whether it's just for their mortgage, whether it's for their rent, LIHEAP, so for their utilities, ensuring that they keep a roof over their head, they have internet access to stay engaged, that they have electricity and water and sewage all paid. And the other thing that I would have to say is I want to see a continuance of the legal assistance that came through a creative partnership with Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise of ensuring that there was legal aid for people who might have been illegally evicted, who might not know their renters' rights. And so making sure people are able to understand, even if they have been introduced with an eviction notice, that they still have rights and can potentially stay in their home. I would like to see that continue, but I would like to see an expansion of making sure that we do not forget our local community businesses. I am so sad that I have seen community businesses like the Palace downtown, where artists that I know and have supported will no longer be able to go there and have shows or do things for the future. Just seeing small businesses close saddens my heart. So I would like to see us tap into maybe rainy day funds to ensure that we keep small businesses in our communities open and we don't have a further cyclical downturn of our economy because we are seeing small businesses close their doors permanently.
Okay. Paving and transportation consistently rank at the top of citizens' top concerns. That's according to annual studies done by the city. What transportation or infrastructural goals would you have if you were elected?
I would have to break that down into three parts. I think we need to have short term, um, interim, and then long term goals. The first thing that we need to do is we have to invest into CARTA and increase ride share as well as increase routes where people will be able to get on and utilize public transportation. And so CARTA is one of many departments within our city that does not receive equitable budget funding, and we need to invest in that. Everybody does not have the privilege of having a car, and so we need not only a public transit system, but it needs to be up to date, it needs to be clean energy, and it also needs to be very efficient. The other thing is what are some medium or maybe some interim things that we could work on? Of course, we are seeing construction with the highway expansion. We have a corridor that they have been working on for the last several years that came from our regional transportation plan from 2040, which is a 19-mile rapid bus corridor. So ensuring that we have corridors that allow for rapid transportation for buses to be able to kind of bypass general traffic and get from one place to the next. And then, of course, long term, thinking about how we can invest into something we've talked about for years, which is the light rail. We are a train town. That's one of the things that's famous about Chattanooga. And so why not think about in the future having a light rail system? And we have had a study for that as well. As a matter of fact, if you look at the plans, one of the pickup stops for that is right in East Chattanooga. So thinking about we need some diversity in how we maneuver people around, but also as we develop, things that we have to keep in mind is when we build, are we building communities around routes that are accessible to busing locations or hubs for transportation, things that we have to think about also as we develop.
Okay, moving into some business and economy questions. City labor unions and many activists support a $15 minimum wage for city employees, which Mayor Burke had intended to begin implementing prior to COVID. Do you support this or any other specific pay increase plans for city employees? And why or why not?
Absolutely. It is a $14 million commitment over 3 years. We can do that. I want to see our city employees be paid equitable wages. 40%, I want people to think about this, 40% of city employees qualify for food stamps or some sort of governmental assistance. We should be ashamed that we have people who are keeping our city running who have to have sometimes 2 and 3 jobs. I was endorsed by the Labor Council and the SEIU 205 because I've been fighting with union brothers and sisters for years at City Council for an equitable wage. And that's not just only for city employees as a whole, but even when we had a study come out that our firefighters are making about $10.50 an hour to start, you're telling me the heroes and heroines that pull us out of burning buildings are making poverty wages? We've got to fix that. And we've got to fix that for several reasons. We want to treat our city employees with dignity and respect. We want them to be able to have one job to take care of their family members. But the other thing is we will continue to lose talent to other competitive cities if we do not bring our people up to an equitable wage. And so if we want to move into the future, we've got to pay our people. So I fully support a $15 an hour minimum wage for all city employees and a commitment to our firefighters that we need to bring their pay scale up as well.
Okay. In 2019, 40% of Chattanooga's households are housing cost burdened. That means that they pay more to afford other necessities. How would you address affordable housing in your district?
Excellent question. One of the things that we have got to rein in Chattanooga are non-owner occupied Airbnbs. Nashville came to an intelligent conclusion that they could not continue to afford to allow outside interest into community neighborhoods and understood the impact that that has to a housing shortage. I support Airbnbs as long as we have the owner of that home living actually there and paying taxes here in the city of Chattanooga. And secondly, we need to put a cap on the amount of Airbnbs that we have in the community to make sure that they're not being overrun in a particular neighborhood. One of the other things is I've had a wonderful opportunity extended to me as a community activist was to work with Collier Construction right off of Main Street for their Catoosa Thatcher Mill project, where Mr. Collier has decided to slate a portion of the project to affordable housing and extend that through C&E to community members who rent. So that is laying a blueprint for development in the future of encouraging developers to partner with the city of Chattanooga without a tax break to include a portion of a development to the very people who live in the community that have the potential to be displaced. The other thing is that one of the things I learned going to city council is that we have a very outdated zoning structure. We do not have enough diversified housing. So the majority of our housing are R1, which is a single family dwelling. We need to diversify the type of zoning structures that we have to allow all types of housing, whether that is tiny homes, whether that is accessory dwelling units or granny flats, quadplexes, triplexes. We need to expand the type of housing because everyone's needs are different. And finally, I would have to say, as Chattanooga, especially in East Chattanooga, we have a tremendous amount of abandoned buildings that I've seen the city of Chattanooga purchase buildings as surplus. Why not purchase some of those buildings and partner with developers to turn that into micro housing for our homeless, to get them off of the street, and even create housing opportunities for returning citizens who are coming back home from prison, or even college students who need to get into affordable housing so they can get their first and fresh start into being tax-paying citizens as well. So those are the various ideas I have of how we can tackle a large and complex problem like affordable housing.
Okay, let's move into public safety. So last fall, shootings in Chattanooga were up by 20% from the same time in 2019 and higher than any time in the last 5 years. How would you work as a council member to lower crime in your district?
So crime is based on various different social dynamics. One of the things that we have to change when we think about changing the landscape of public and community safety is that we cannot continue to punish people, and that has not solved any of our problems. Locking people up, threatening to send them to prison forever has not, obviously, by your statistics, stop any level of gun violence that's happening at a community level. So what are the things that we can begin to do to break the cycle? This is why it was so important for us as protest leaders to make the demands of focusing more on behavioral and mental health. The problem that we have is that when you have concentrated poverty, when you have vast miseducation, when you have lack of economic opportunity, what you have is a perfect storm or a perfect situation where people who are locked into various different social dynamics are having to fight for limited resources. It shouldn't be that way in a city that makes $1 billion in revenue every single year. So the things that I would like to do is, how can we bring more economic opportunity to the community in the form of small business, as well as connecting young people and transitioning adults to technology and the jobs of the future that are going to be available, like at Nippon Paint, at the Boone High Singer site. I will also have to say is I have 14 schools in my district, all the way from elementary school to UTC and Chattanooga State. So how can I connect our young people to have a passion and love for education, and then make sure that they have an idea of who and what they want to be when they get older, and how can I get them all the way from elementary school to college? So those are some of the things that I would like to do, is be a support system for the people and to seek a different outlet or outcome that is not looking to punish people, but to heal people in our community and show them that they can do so much better and they deserve better.
Okay. Activists spent this summer protesting police brutality across the country and in Chattanooga. demanding defunding or divesting from police. Would you consider defunding or divesting from CPD for reform? And in what other ways, if any, would you consider law enforcement reform?
Absolutely. Divestment has happened all across the country. As a protest leader here in the city of Chattanooga, that was at the top of our demands. One thing that most people do not know, because very little people have been encouraged to be educated through our budgeting process, is the city of Chattanooga in the last 4 years has gone from a $55 million budget for the police to about $75 million. That's a $20 million increase. We could have not only brought all of our city workers up to an equitable wage with that investment, but still had some money left over to invest in things like CARTA, to invest in things like YFD centers, the library, and various other things. And so the thing that people need to understand and not have any panic about is that divesting from the police does not mean that we are slashing police services. What that means is we have to understand police respond at the end of a social dynamic, whether we're talking about a property crime or a physical crime or a harm to someone in the community. By the time they show up, the situation has already happened. Did we prevent any of the steps that led up to that action to where the police had to respond? And so that's the way that we have to, again, reimagine public safety. We have to put these things into breaking cycles. So by the time we do get to the police, if we have to get to the police, there's no reason for them, right? A person drinking may not be drinking just because, they might be drinking because they're depressed. And so they need somebody who can help them with their behavioral circumstances. When I lost my grandmother, who was the matriarch of my family, there were days I didn't want to get out of bed. There were days where I could not function as a human being because I missed the woman who had been there for me all of my life. So many of us understand that we just go through things in life where we need support, and it's no disrespect to the people who choose that as a career path, but there are so many different other areas where we need to be reinvesting budget funds that are really going to break the social dynamics that lead to crime and criminal behavior.
Okay. Many have questioned the conduct of activists given vandalism, disruption to business, and confrontations with police. Um, Others have criticized law enforcement for restricting access to public areas, surveillance of activists on private property, and the nature of some arrests. If similar unrest came up during your term, how would you weigh restrictions for activists and police presence? What would you have done?
So the first thing is that we have to understand that the only reason people are spilling into the streets is not because they want to. It's because we force them by ignoring a serious problem that's going on, not only in our nation, but locally, of police abuse of power against citizens. Whether we're talking about Reginald Arrington Jr. Being beaten by 5 sheriff deputies, Javario Eagle being shot multiple times by Chattanooga police officers, Desmond Logan raping several women while on the job over several years before he was finally caught and brought to justice. There is a real and prevalent harm that is historical happening at the hands of police. And so the things that we have to understand is we can't complain. And even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said he would encourage people to be peaceable, but he would not speak against the youth or the young people rioting because he understood that they were pushed there by government-sponsored violence. So the thing that I would like to do is I wouldn't restrict activists. I wouldn't be surveilling activists. I would be holding police officers who are city employees accountable for how they show up in the public. And I know if I hold them accountable for how they show up in the public and in the community, if I have consistent and transparent conversations with the leadership structure of the police department, and I firmly support community and independent control into the police department, I think we will begin to see a difference in how people show up. But I cannot and will not ignore the fact that we are dealing with a social dynamic that seeks and to threaten the existence and the lives of Black, Latinx, and poor and impoverished people.
Okay. Do you support current city council restrictions on public input during meetings? And would you change these policies or make efforts to encourage public input?
Excellent question. And so this is one thing that I had the pleasure of working with Councilwoman Burrs on, kind of tangling with the city council, is I do not believe in restrictions on speaking on a weekly basis. Of course, because we are having meetings, and the reason for that is so we can handle the business of the city. I would say that I would bring that back up to a 5-minute cap. It should have never been dwindled down to 3 minutes and then cut down to 2 times a month. No, you're a tax-paying citizen. You have a right to show up every week if you want and to speak your piece about whatever issue you have in the community. And we need to respect the tax-paying citizen with that opportunity. But I would say that we do have to try to cap it so we can still handle business. But again, part of the reason why we're dealing with these dynamics is because we have people who are running away from accountability. So I believe in a time limit, but every week, I think every tax-paying citizen, from our babies to the eldest person in our community, should have the right to come down and talk about whatever they're concerned about.
Okay. Have you received the COVID-19 vaccine? And if not, will you when it's available?
I have not. I have looked extensively into the medical research as far as how the trials went, how some of the information has been passed out. And given the nature and the history of various different time periods in history where the United States government has experimented on Black bodies and even intentionally infected African Americans through the Tuskegee experiment with syphilis when they had a cure, I do have to say I am highly concerned about standing in line as a woman of color and getting the vaccine. But that has come from a conscious decision of wanting to see more medical research and understanding about the virus. But my main concern has been making sure I understand the impacts. And I just have not seen enough data that makes me feel comfortable to take the vaccine. But I would never discourage anybody from doing that. I would just want people to be educated about the decision they make to do so.
Okay. What relationship between the mayor, or what should the relationship between the mayor and the city council look like? And will you cultivate relationships with the new administration?
It should look like a collaboration, because that's what it is. Of course, we're two different branches of government, but the mayor and the city council both serve at the will and the expectation of the people. And that even counts the people who didn't vote for you or didn't elect you and might not even like you. So there needs to be more conversation and communication between the mayor's office and the city council. To the city council's defense, even though I'm quite hard on them, I have seen in so many different 1:30 meetings where the mayor's office or mayor's staff had not followed up on questions or concerns from city council members, which was concerning to me as a taxpayer, or dropped a decision that needed to be decided on the same night on the city council on the same day. That should not happen. So there should be more planning and more communication that happens and some congruency, because the purpose of us working together should be to have an efficient government on both sides. And so I see opportunity to be able to do that. And that means aiding my city council members and making sure we're all informed and sharing information about what's going on, overlap of things that's happening in the district, decisions, and making sure that we're staying informed. But that also means that we're all demanding that this next mayor that comes in, that they be transparent, not only with us, but also with the city.
Would you support public money for a new Chattanooga Lookout Stadium?
I would not put that as a priority per se. I think one of the things that came out of the Chamber of Commerce is that it's going to take 2 to 3 years for us to recover from COVID-19. I think there are so many different other priorities that we would have a bit at the forefront before talking about building a stadium. We've already built several stadiums for soccer, and of course, because of the new normal with COVID-19, we're not able to gather in large numbers, and we might have to accept the reality it could be like this for a while. So I would not say that I wouldn't think about that maybe sometime down the line, but it's not something that I would say is a priority in this current pandemic.
Okay. And my last question, what else should should voters know about you?
What voters should know about me is, first of all, I am a lifetime Chattanoogan. I was born and raised in this city, so I am invested in seeing it move forward. I didn't leave when the going got tough. I have not left because there were greater opportunities elsewhere. I stayed in my city because I love my city and I want to see Chattanooga really reach its fullest potential. I want people in the community to be encouraged that trouble doesn't last always. We are going to get through every situation that we're going through right now if we stay unified and if we love and respect one another. And I also want people to know that I am available, and you can reach me if you have any questions, not only about my platform or about any of the initiatives that I have worked on over these last several years or even the protests, but you can reach out to me and get to know me. You can follow me on Marie Mott 2021 on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. You can also reach out to me through my website, www.mariemott.com, and I would be glad to speak with you.
All right, Marie Mott, candidate for District 8 City Council seat for City of Chattanooga. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to answer these questions and help folks learn more about you.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
All right, have a good day, Marie.
You too.